My name is Lena. Say it, and hear the echo of a woman who once believed in fairy tales, only to have the glass slipper shatter. The man who taught me that lesson, the man I once loved with a fierce, hopeful dedication, the one who eventually fractured my world into irreparable pieces, was Daniel. When we stood at the altar and spoke our vows, I felt like I was standing on the summit of life. I was at the peak of my professional world, a high-performing banker, sharp and successful, effortlessly maneuvering complex financial instruments amidst the electric buzz of the city's district. He was a brilliant, promising young medical doctor, building his reputation with a kind of dedicated, laser-focused ambition that made my own heart swell with pride. For the first 2 years, our life was a brightly polished mirror reflecting a perfect, aspirational image, encompassing genuine love, boundless shared ambition, and an undeniable equal partnership. We were two strong, confident currents flowing together, charting a course destined for a grand, enviable future we were absolutely committed to building side by side. We were an elite unit, seemingly impenetrable and overwhelmingly successful. We'd go to charity galas, exclusive resort vacations, and professional gatherings, mingling with the city's high-profile society. Daniel would always introduce me with an almost proprietorial flourish. This is Lena, my wife, the sharpest mind in the room, a high-profile banker at one of the most prosperous firms in the city. The praise felt intoxicating, a warm wave of validation. But now, looking back, I realized that pride was entirely conditional. Little did I know, his adoration was meticulously calibrated. He was less interested in the true, quiet love I craved, and far more interested in my status and how brilliantly my success complemented, validated, and elevated his own image in the eyes of the world. I was his accessory, and my failure to maintain that shine would soon expose the terrifying shallowness of his affection. Then, the economic tide receded with a sudden vicious pull. The recession hit hard, tearing through the corporate landscape, and the day I received the redundancy letter, a polite yet deeply impersonal corporate farewell delivered on expensive stationery, was the day a fundamental seismic shift began in the foundation of my marriage. It was more than just the loss of a job. It was the sudden, terrifying instability that Daniel's carefully constructed ego could not tolerate in his partner. The perfect image was tarnished, and he couldn't hide his disappointment. The change in Daniel was subtle at first, masked by the pretense of sympathy. He'd stop asking about the details of my day. The comfortable shared silence became awkward, then heavy. My attempts to explain the entrepreneurial courses I was taking, the late nights spent at networking events, the grueling effort to pivot my entire high-level banking career into independent financial consultation were met not with support, but with an impatient sigh. He seemed to view my struggle as a personal failure, a stain on our perfect image. When my initial attempts to land substantial, big-name contracts inevitably failed, a brutal reality of starting fresh, the subtlety evaporated entirely. "Another wasted afternoon on the laptop, Lena?" he'd ask, leaning against the kitchen counter with his arms crossed, a dismissive wave of his hand sweeping away my hours of work. The tone was always the same, condescension laced with mockery. The mockery became a public spectacle. At dinner parties with his rising medical colleagues and their equally successful wives, I heard him casually joke, his tone dripping with false affection. "Oh, Lima's on her extended sabbatical, trying to figure out what consultant means this week. She's brainstorming from home." The laughter that followed was a physical punch to my gut. I felt my face flushed with a deep, scalding shame that he had intentionally inflicted, choosing to entertain his peers at my expense. The woman I was becoming, determined, fighting, and temporarily struggling, was deemed an embarrassment. His emotional withdrawal escalated into something darker. He started coming home after midnight, smelling faintly of expensive, unfamiliar cologne and perfume lies he didn't even bother to articulate. I saw the classic signs: the averted gaze, the sudden, urgent need for privacy with his phone, the chilling emotional distance. But I realized I was no longer fighting for him or the shell of our marriage. I was fighting fiercely for me. In the vast, sterile silence of our crumbling home, I channeled every ounce of the humiliation and corrosive pain into my work. I took the tiny, low-paying projects, drafting local business plans for startups, conducting small market analysis for neighborhood ventures, not for the meager money, but for the tangible experience, for the concrete resume bullet points, and most importantly, for the quiet confidence they slowly, painstakingly built inside me. Each small success was a tiny drop of antidote against the poison of his dismissal. Finally, he delivered the blow I already knew was coming. He stood in the middle of our immaculate, overly decorated living room, framed by the life we had supposedly built together. The air was cold, clinical. "I'm ending the marriage, Lena," he stated, his voice sterile, controlled, and definitive. "You're simply no longer befitting of my current standards. My path is moving forward, and I need a partner who reflects that. And yes, there is someone else. She's a banker. She understands my world now." He didn't stop there. He looked at me, truly looked at me, and added a final crushing dismissal. "I've met with a divorce lawyer, and the details of our divorce have been prepared. You will be served soon, and please don't contest it, because I've made up my mind. You are a shadow of the woman you used to be. Precious, my new lover, is everything and more than you used to be." The pain was excruciating, a cold, breathless vacuum where my heart used to be. The irony that he was replacing me with the successful corporate woman I had been was a fresh, lacerating wound. But the shame was gone, scorched away by his brutal honesty, replaced by a crystalline clarity. His words, intended to destroy, had instead served as a final, definitive severing. He hadn't destroyed me. He had merely shattered the cage and inadvertently freed me. The divorce proceedings were quick, efficient, and facilitated by my utter lack of protest or demand. I signed every paper. I just wanted out. 3 weeks later, I was gone. I packed minimal essentials and drove east to a new city, to an apartment with an enormous window view that faced the rising sun, and a resolute, unshakable purpose. I had no grand, detailed plan, only the deep-seated, empowering knowledge that my worth was not determined by a man's fickle approval or a corporate job title. It was determined by my effort, my resilience, and the relentless quality of the work I was willing to put in. Stacy, a former colleague, a friend I had neglected during my years of domestic focus, reconnected with me. She saw the new steel in my spine and the clarity in my vision. That connection led to a small contract, which led to a successful deliverable, which opened the doors to more. 15 months later, I was a principal financial consultant, servicing 5 major firms with 6-figure contracts each. I had built an empire from the wreckage of his dismissal, an empire powered by my own name. My success was silent. It was private. I didn't seek his attention, but somehow, inevitably, he found me. The first text came late one night. "Lena, I know I messed up. Can we talk, please?" I didn't answer. The calls followed, the messages on every platform, even desperate pleas relayed through mutual friends and family. "Daniel is miserable. He says he made the worst mistake of his life. He wants you back." The irony had turned into something else entirely, a dark kind of justice, silent and utterly poetic. I wasn't seeking information about Daniel. I had walled off that part of my life. Yet, the whispers of his demise filtered through the network. 3 weeks later, I was gone. I packed minimal essentials and drove east to a new city, to an apartment with an enormous window view that faced the rising sun and a resolute, unshakable purpose. I had no grand, detailed plan, only the deep-seated, empowering knowledge that my worth was not determined by a man's fickle approval or a corporate job title. It was determined by my effort, my resilience, and the relentless quality of the work I was willing to put in. Stacy, a former colleague, a friend I had neglected during my years of domestic focus, reconnected with me. She saw the new steel in my spine and the clarity in my vision. That connection led to a small contract, which led to a successful deliverable, which opened the doors to more. 15 months later, I was a principal financial consultant, servicing 5 major firms with 6-figure contracts each. I had built an empire from the wreckage of his dismissal, an empire powered by my own name. My success was silent. It was private. I didn't seek his attention, but somehow, inevitably, he found me. The first text came late one night. "Lena, I know I messed up. Can we talk, please?" I didn't answer. The calls followed, the messages on every platform, even desperate pleas relayed through mutual friends and family. "Daniel is miserable. He says he made the worst mistake of his life. He wants you back." The irony had turned into something else entirely, a dark kind of justice, silent and utterly poetic. I wasn't seeking information about Daniel. I had walled off that part of my life. Yet the whispers of his demise filtered through the network of our former acquaintances, too juicy for gossip columns to ignore. I learned the shocking truth behind his sudden, desperate remorse. His new partner, Precious, the successful, high-status banker he had traded me for, was absolutely not the quiet, effortlessly supportive wife he had envisioned. She was a different, far more volatile kind of ambition entirely. She was reportedly loud, highly spirited, and profoundly intolerant of his increasingly entitled doctor's ego and unreasonable domestic demands. Precious was a true powerhouse in her career, and she carried that demanding energy directly into their home. Crucially, she was utterly uninterested in performing domestic duties. I heard she explicitly refused to cook or clean, stating that she wouldn't risk ruining her manicures or her focus. She made it clear that her success meant she was above the labor I had quietly taken on. Even during my own banking career, claiming housework would compromise her beauty and her precious time. She fiercely protected her schedule, refusing point-blank to cater to his demanding needs for a perfectly curated home life or a constantly massaging ego. The reports of their conflict were legendary. Their fighting wasn't just audible, it was physically intense, a constant siege that drew police attention from neighbors multiple times. The woman Daniel chose simply to elevate his status had in fact stripped him bare, matching his demanding ambition with an equal and opposite force of her own fierce independence, demanding equality in every sense. He got the successful banker he wanted, but he also got the brutal reality of a partner who saw him as an obstacle to her comfort and success, not a superior to be served. I had moved on to a life of true, profound contentment, a quiet, anchoring peace I hadn't known even when my marriage to Daniel appeared flawless on the surface. I refused to let his past cruelty poison my future happiness, especially now that I was rediscovering myself and the possibility of genuine affection. So, I started dating Ethan, a quiet man with kind eyes and a steady, grounding heart. He wasn't chasing the glittering veneer of status. He was focused on building beautiful structures and living an honest, centered life. He was an architect by profession, but more importantly, he was an architect of relationships, patient, thoughtful, and meticulously detailed in his care and attention. On our first date, he didn't probe my career trajectory. He gently asked about my favorite books. He didn't inquire about my bank account. He wanted to know about my dreams. He didn't fixate on the successful woman I had become or the wounded woman I had been. He simply saw my potential future. He valued me, Lena, the woman beneath the titles and the trauma, not the resume or the salary. It was a love built purely on respect, emotional connection, and a deep sense of mutual worth. After several attempts to reconnect with me, all which have been futile, as I made every conscious effort not to reconnect with him, one Saturday evening, Ethan and I were curled up on the sofa, discussing his new project over a glass of wine, when the violent, relentless pounding started at my front door. It wasn't a knock, it was an attack. I looked up, startled. Ethan immediately moved to the door, his posture shifting to quiet protection. "I'll get it," I said, rising. I knew. I could feel the familiar, desperate energy radiating through the wood. "Lena, open this door. I know you're in there, Lena." Daniel's voice, raw and panicked, tore through the apartment. Ethan looked at me, his eyes asking the silent question. I met his gaze, a slight, calm smile touching my lips. "It's fine," I mouthed. "It's closure." I unlocked the door and pulled it open just enough to stop him from barging in. Daniel stood on my doorstep, a ghost of the polished man he used to be. His suit was rumpled, his face edged with strain and desperation. "Lena, thank God," he began, lunging forward. "You have to let me in. I know this is crazy, but I've been trying to tell you. I made a mistake, a colossal, career-ending mistake. I need you back, Lena. I need the stability. I need us." He looked past me, his eyes widening as he saw Ethan standing calmly a few feet behind me, his hands in his pockets, a silent sentinel of my new life. "Who is this?" Daniel demanded, the panic hardening into familiar possessiveness. I stepped fully into the doorway, allowing my full stature, my unshakable confidence, to fill the space. "Daniel," I said, my voice low, steady, and utterly devoid of emotion. "This is Ethan. He's my partner." His face crumpled, a mask of entitlement finally cracking to reveal pure fear. "Your partner? Lena, don't be ridiculous. You know what we had. You know what I can offer you. That little consulting hobby of yours is cute, but I'm a doctor. I am your real life. That other woman, Precious, she was a disaster. All the success in the world, and she was impossible. She wasn't you." I looked at him, feeling a strange surge of pity that vanished instantly. "And now you're here, seeking refuge because the woman you thought would validate you decided she wasn't willing to serve you. You replaced me, Daniel, with the very status you required. Now that woman has found her own voice and her own demands, and you're running back to the woman you dismissed as worthless?" I paused, letting the silence ring with the sound of his broken ego. "Daniel, my little consulting hobby now consists of 5 multi-year contracts that pay me more than twice what you earn. I own this apartment outright. And more importantly, I finally own my own life. You taught me the hard lesson that my value is something I had to build for myself, without your permission and without your respect. You said I was a shadow of the woman I used to be. You were right. I am a better, stronger woman than the one you married. And for that, I am truly grateful." I took a breath, the finality settling over me like a warm mantle. "I am happy, Daniel. I have success, I have peace, and I have a man who values me, not my status. You don't get to be a part of this. You forfeited that right when you decided I wasn't worth keeping." I pushed the door gently but firmly forward, narrowing the space between us. "Go home, Daniel. The woman you are looking for doesn't live here anymore." The door clicked shut, the final, soft sound echoing the absolute silence in my heart where his memory used to reside. I didn't wait to hear if he knocked again. I turned, and Ethan was there, taking my hand. He didn't need to ask anything. He simply brought my hand to his lips and kissed it. My revenge was not his ruin. It was my reconstruction. It was a powerful, quiet triumph of self-worth. It was this peace,